If you have consumed any Detroit Lions information this offseason, you have likely heard people talk about the pass rush, saying that in the NFL draft or in free agency or via a trade, the Lions needed to get a pass rushing partner for Aidan Hutchinson, that it was so important to get that second edge rusher that could get you 10 sacks in a season. And when it didn't happen, many of them came out and said that the Detroit Lions failed Aidan Hutchinson this offseason. Some people said that it was going to be the reason that the Detroit Lions didn't win a Super Bowl and reach their ceiling as a franchise. And those people are lying to you. Those large content creators, those media outlets, and all of those people saying those things are saying them for click, are saying them to get you outraged, to comment and share and say, look at this and look at what the Lions aren't doing, and to talk about the Lions. They are lying to you. Was the Detroit Lions pass rush excellent a season ago? Absolutely not. It was far from it. Was the Detroit Lions pass rush underwhelming a season ago? Absolutely. And that is a fair thing to say. But to say that they are failing Aidan Hutchinson to not get an edge rusher, to say that they haven't done enough to address the defensive line needs, and to go out there and flatly say that the Detroit Lions don't have a good pass rush is simply misinformation for rage bait and for clicks. And today we're going to talk exactly about that. And if you disagree, that's totally fine. If you disagree and you feel like the Lions need to get better edge rusher and didn't do so, that's totally fine. Go in the comments down below and let me know why that is. But give me a few minutes. Let me get to the end of the video. Give me 10, 15 minutes, and then comment that and see if I can change your mind throughout this video. So before we get into it, let's talk about the 2024 pass rush, because there was a lot of contributors, but a lot of smaller contributors, right? Aidan Hutchinson through 5 games was fantastic, 7.5 sacks on the season, was on pace to potentially break the all-time single season sack record, but unfortunately injuries put that to a very swift end. Za'Darius Smith put up 4 sacks for the Detroit Lions pass rush. Aleem McNeil had 3.5. DJ Reader had 3. Al-Qudain Muhammad had 3. Josh Paschal, Malcolm Rodriguez, and Trevor Nowaski all contributed 2. Jack Campbell and Levi Onwuzurike contributed 1.5 each, with Miles Adams, Pat O'Connor, and Marcus Davenport each contributing a sack to the defense. All in all, the Detroit Lions turned out with 37 sacks throughout their 18-game season, and it was okay, right? There was a lot of times where the pass rush didn't seem like it was getting home, and that reflects in the way that they compare across the NFL. You compare them to the NFL and the rest of the league, the Detroit Lions ranked 24th in sacks, they ranked 28th in tackles for loss, 28th in sack percentage, and just 22nd in yards per carry, and 21st in rushing touchdowns allowed. For a team that last season was the best rushing defense in all of football, they took a massive step back in regression there, as well as failing to take a step forward as a pass rusher. If you look at those statistics and look solely at those 6 statistics, you would say the Detroit Lions had a really, really poor defense a season ago. However, if you go just a little bit more in depth, the Detroit Lions were actually quite good at a number of other major statistics on defense, and they were a much better defense than those stats would have you believe. But before we get to those, I want to take a look at the rest of the league, because all offseason, there have been people saying that the Detroit Lions need to be like the Philadelphia Eagles. The Detroit Lions need to be like the Kansas City Chiefs, the Los Angeles Rams, the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? All of these teams known for defense and known for pass rush. So let's actually look at that. Let's actually compare the pass rushes between these 4 to 5 teams and talk about how far behind the Lions actually were, even without their star players. Well, if you take a look at some of the statistics, compare them to the Rams, a team that everybody talks about that the Lions need to emulate. On social media, I put out a poll saying if the Detroit Lions did what the Rams did a season ago on the defensive line from a production standpoint, would you be happy? And 90% of Lions fans, of I think the 30 voters, said yes, that would be a dream come true. Well, the Los Angeles Rams had just a single more sack than the Detroit Lions with 48 less pressures on the season. The Kansas City Chiefs, a team that was known for having a good pass rush down the stretch and in the playoffs, had 2 more sacks and just 8 less pressures than the Detroit Lions. The Philadelphia Eagles, that team that won the Super Bowl with their elite pass rush and made Patrick Mahomes uncomfortable all day long, had 4 more sacks than the Detroit Lions, but nearly 70 fewer pressures. Pittsburgh Steelers, 3 more sacks, 40 less pressures. In fact, if you give the Detroit Lions 5 more sacks, right? Because they ranked 4th in the NFL in pressures. If you gave them 5 more sacks on the season, they would have ranked in the top 12 of team sacks in a season. The difference between, say, the 10th overall team and the 25th overall team is a difference of 7 sacks across an entire season. Yes, the Denver Broncos to the Patriots, right? The top to the bottom is about 30 sacks difference, but between about 10 to 25, it is so incredibly close that even 2 to 3 sacks can completely change your rankings by multiple positions in the ranking spots. Taking a look at the rest of the Lions' defensive statistics, they were phenomenal at a lot of things last year. Getting to the quarterback wasn't necessarily one of them, but the Detroit Lions, as I mentioned, ranked 4th in the NFL in pressure percentage and pressures across the league. They ranked 3rd in the NFL in quarterback hits and 10th in the NFL in turnovers. They were also the 7th best scoring defense across the NFL. They were the very best defense on 3rd down conversion rate. They were the 2nd best defense in 4th down conversion rate and the 7th best defense in red zone conversion rate for touchdowns. They were phenomenal at getting off the field. They were phenomenal at keeping teams out of the end zone. They were excellent at putting pressure on the quarterback. They were excellent at even hitting the quarterback and forcing turnovers and getting off the field. They were a great defense a season ago. And I know down the stretch, it didn't really feel like it, right? Those last 5 to 6 games when everybody got hurt really hurt the Detroit Lions. From about Thanksgiving to week 16, it was rough. There was a lot of things going on that didn't go the Detroit Lions' way. But again, you have to consider how many people were on injury reserve for those games. And the Detroit Lions still finished as the best 3rd down defense in football, the 2nd best 4th down defense in football. They got off the field more than anybody else. They turned the football over more than most teams, and they allowed fewer points than a majority of teams across the NFL. And that's not even to consider the fact that all of these players were on injury reserve, from Nate Lynn and Isaac Ukwu in the preseason, Marcus Davenport in week 3, Aidan Hutchinson in week 5, Mekhi Wingo in week 7, Aleem McNeil in week 13, Derek Barnes in week 3, Malcolm Rodriguez on Thanksgiving, and so many other players are returning to this roster that will impact the pass rush next season. It is not a 2 to 3 player difference. This isn't, hey, the Detroit Lions lost a pass rusher a season ago. They lost their entire defensive line and still finished as a top 4 team in pressure percentage a season ago. I did a color coordinated depth chart for the Detroit Lions going into next season. And as you can see on the screen, every single player for the most part on the defense, with the exception of Terrion Arnold and the safeties, are brand new to this team. The linebackers had severe injuries. The defensive tackle room had severe injuries. The edge rushing team had severe injuries a season ago. And all of those players are coming back. Aleem McNeil, obviously closer towards Thanksgiving, closer towards middle of the season, but still a second half of the year with Aleem McNeil is only going to help the Detroit Lions defense. They went into this offseason and they added more to the defense, just like people were asking for. They added Roy Lopez in free agency, Tyleek Williams with the 28th overall pick, and Ahmed Hassanin, a super productive pass rusher from Boise State, in the 6th round of the NFL draft. This is not a situation in which the Detroit Lions don't get a lot of talent back. This isn't a situation where Aidan Hutchinson was healthy all year and Aleem McNeil was healthy all year and Derek Barnes and Marcus Davenport was healthy all season, and now we're adding just a defensive tackle and some run stoppers. The Detroit Lions next season, from the day they stepped off the field in January in that divisional round loss to week 1 of the NFL season, assuming players make it through training camp healthy, is outstanding. The Detroit Lions will add 5 defensive ends, from Aidan Hutchinson to Marcus Davenport to Ahmad Hassanin to Isaac Ukwu and Nate Lynn. Aidan Hutchinson, obviously the all-pro pass rusher, arguably the best defensive player in all of football a season ago before he got hurt. A lot of people are very down on Marcus Davenport, but failed to realize that in his first 5 seasons of play, he played at a minimum of 11 games a season for the New Orleans Saints before going to Minnesota. Yes, the past 2 seasons, he's had really poor injury luck, but if he goes back to even what he was early in his career, he's going to play 10 to 11 games for the Detroit Lions, and that is an impactful position that the Lions are adding from a season season ago. People are going to say Ahmad Hassanin is a 6th-round pick. Like many 6th-round picks in the past haven't turned out to be really good players. He is physical, he works hard, he has a great ethic and a great work ethic, a great motor, and was super productive at Boise State, a team that was pretty good. He had sacks against both Oregon and Penn State in the 2 biggest games of their season against NFL caliber tackles. That is a player that can contribute in the NFL. And even Isaac Ukwu and Nate Lynn, 2 undrafted rookie free agents from a season ago, got hurt in the preseason, but looked phenomenal. They each had a sack and a half against the Giants in 5+ pressures before one of them tore their ACL at MetLife and the other tore their ACL the second week of the preseason versus the Chiefs. They were looking excellent, and they may not have turned out to be anything great in the regular season, but if they were healthy, I could assure you they would have been playing, and they would have been playing really well from what we saw based on the preseason against the Giants and the Chiefs. The Detroit Lions defensive tackle room is returning not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 players to the defensive line. That being, of course, Tyleik Williams, the 28th overall pick from the NFL draft, who will shore up the run defense, but also will improve the pass rush a little bit, as he will be a blocker that people have to take up and account for. He's not a super statistically high-regarded pass rusher, but he had 10.5 sacks in college. He's a chaos creator. He collapses the pocket. He causes that pressure to be there. You have guys like Roy Lopez, who is a run stopper, right, but does add to the defensive line as far as just taking up blocks, being a player that teams have to account for. And then you obviously have Ali McNeil, who won't be back until midseason, but when he does come back, that's another pass rusher that you're going to add to Aidan Hutchinson. And even Mekhi Wingo, a player that played, I think, 6 to 7 games a season ago, didn't walk away with a sack, but when you go back and watch him on the defensive line, he was disruptive, he was forcing pressure. I think he had 13 pressures through 7 weeks, which for a rotational 6th-round pick is pretty good. Going into next season, he's not going to be a superstar, but he's going to be a player that could potentially walk away with 2 or 3 sacks throughout the season. You're bringing back 2 outside linebackers that can rush the passer with Malcolm Rodriguez and Derek Barnes. Derek Barnes coming off of the torn MCL, Malcolm Rodriguez off the torn ACL, but both of them have shown in the past that they can get to the quarterback, and not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 cornerbacks this offseason, with Amik Robertson returning from IR, Ennis Rakestraw returning from IR, and of course adding both DJ Reed, Avonte Maddox, and Rocky Sin this offseason through free agency. Their secondary is better and deeper and will cause the quarterback to have to hold the ball even longer than they already did. Was the Detroit Lions pass rush perfect a year ago? Absolutely not. Were they even good a season ago from a sacks percentage? Absolutely not. They had things to work on. They had things to get better this season, and there was room for improvement. There absolutely was. And I won't even go as far as to say that Brad Holmes maximized that potential to make the pass rush as good as possible. But he didn't need to, is the point. Brad Holmes did what Brad Holmes does. He trusted his guys. He trusts the process. And now you have a 15-2 NFL football team getting back 5 defensive ends, 4 defensive tackles, 2 outside linebackers, and 5 cornerbacks, and you don't think this team is going to be any good? You don't think that the pass rush might be able to finish a little bit better with their defensive player of the year, edge rusher, and their Pro Bowl caliber defensive tackle while adding a first-round player to that defensive line? You don't think that the defense might be better when Kendall Vildor isn't out there as a starting cornerback because 5 cornerbacks are on injury reserve going into the playoffs? You don't think that maybe, just maybe, the linebacking core will be a little bit better with Derek Barnes, Malcolm Rodriguez, a healthy Alex Anzalone, Grant Stewart, and Jack Campbell all in the same lineup again that they didn't have since week 3 of the NFL season? That's absolutely asinine. The Detroit Lions are a fantastic defense. They are a talented defense. And even with all the injuries they suffered a season ago, they were a top 10 defense in most major statistical categories. They will be fine next season. They are not going to be the best pass rushing team in the NFL, but they don't need to be. The Philadelphia Eagles weren't the best pass rushing team in football. The Kansas City Chiefs were not the best pass rushing team in football. Even the Minnesota Vikings and the Los Angeles Rams and the Pittsburgh Steelers were not the best pass rushing teams in football. In fact, the Detroit Lions out-pass rushed a majority of those teams when it came to consistency of getting the quarterback uncomfortable, putting the quarterback under pressure, even putting the quarterback on the ground if the ball wasn't in his hands. The Lions had an issue finishing last season. That is absolutely true and absolutely apparent. But they did not have a pass rushing issue last season, and they will not have a pass rushing issue this season unless those historic injuries rise yet again. Unless all of those players go back on IR, the Detroit Lions will be a top 10 pass rush. They will be a top 10 run defense. They will be potentially even a top 5 scoring defense in football. And Brad Holmes is going to look like a genius yet again. So with that being said, go ahead, go down in the comments and comment what the issue is with the pass rush and why it won't be fixed a season from now. If you still disagree, again, that is totally fine. If you have a different viewpoint and a different understanding of the game, that is totally fine. Put down in the comments below why you think the Detroit Lions will fail to have a pass. I'm genuinely curious, because if you have a counter argument, I would love to hear it. But with that being said, please go down below in the comments below. Comment, subscribe, like the video, share the video. I want as many eyes on this as possible to inform Lions fans that the pass rush is okay, the defense is good, and that they can have faith in the Lions defense a season from now. But with that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions.